Welcome everyone, and thanks for joining us on our first ever live stream open rehearsal. This has been made possible by the Cultural Recovery Fund, and we're going to be sharing with you 3 excerpts from our brand new show, Nobody. Nobody was due to open last August, but due to the pandemic, we had to delay. We're really happy to announce that it will now be opening at Sadler's Wells, the Peacock, on the 22nd of September. If you want to get any details, go to our website for tour dates, times, prices, etc., and you can get all the information there. Tonight we'll be going until around 7:30. This will leave you and all the cast enough time to rush off and get ready for the football. Kevin, our artistic director, he'll be here with us to answer any questions, and he'll be talking you through what you'll be seeing section by section. So you'll see a bit of dancing, and then Kev will talk you through the thoughts behind and give you some insight into the sections. Later on today, this evening, we'll be doing a question and answer with myself, Kevin, and it will be led by our good friend David Gilding, who is the arts manager for Warwick District Council. Warwick District Council have been an awesome, fantastic support for many years, and they are the ones who have enabled us to come into this beautiful building, which is our new rehearsal space in Leamington Town Hall. Please feel free to ask as many questions as you like. If you just put them in the online chat, at the end, we'll be able to go through and answer as many questions as you can. As I say, it'll be myself, Kevin, and the dancers, so direct them at any of us. I'd like to just take a quick time to say thank you very much for the Arts Council for their continuing support, and also once again to the Cultural Recovery Fund who have made this possible. Without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Kevin, and I'm going to run off screen. Thank you for joining us. Cheers.
Thanks very much, Junior. Welcome and good evening. This is a completely new thing for us, so we're trying to figure out how it all works. We hope that you really enjoy the evening here. We're going to show you 3 sections of the show. Now, as you know if you know Motionhouse's work, and if you don't, I'll explain it to you. But we like to bring our dance on stage and mix it with digital, film, set, all sorts of things to really bring alive the environment. For tonight, we've decided that we're just in simple rehearsal mode, and we're just going to show you some of the material as it is. So we're not running any digital, we're not running lighting, we're not doing all of those fancy tricks that we can normally do on stage. It's just stripped back, just a rehearsal. We're just going to show you a couple of different types of material, and then hopefully, if you're interested, you'll have questions. So I really look forward to hearing that from you. The first thing I want to say, though, here, for you to completely understand, is that we're working completely in line with the government's guidelines for professional artists. So all of the dancers here, Junior and myself, we're in a bubble, and we run very strict COVID protocols. We're tested regularly throughout the week. We have all been getting our jabs. We have social distancing when we're not in the space. So we're following all of the protocols that allow artists to work in close contact. So just remember that until the government says, we're still following the national guidelines. But mercifully, we are able to do our work, which is fantastic. So this is a show that has been built during COVID times. So it's really influenced what we've made. Simple thing to tell you about the show is, and I'll talk more if you're interested later on, but basically, throughout the show, the performers each play a character, and we follow those characters' journey throughout the show. And they also play another character. So each performer has 2 roles. There's a character, naturally a person in the everyday world, whom you might recognize, someone like you maybe. And then they play another character who's dressed in black, and these we call the crows. And what the crows are, for me, in the concept of this show, is they're very much the voices in our head, the voices that are external to us in the media, all the negative thoughts, all the different whisperings that we're having to listen to when we're trying to reconcile ourselves and our role in the world. So it's a journey between the two. In this first section, there are two characters who will be dressed in as everyday characters, so in their training clothes, they're just wearing ordinary. And the others have all got a black t-shirt on, I think. Yep, looks that good. So they will be, that's in representation of their crow costume, which I have to say looks fab, but that's just me. But it's not the black t-shirt, it's a very nice design that our costume designer has done for us, which you'll get to see. So, especially if you look at our trailer, it's on there. So this first section takes place, and in this we're using a piece of set, and I think it's really important to say we're very keen on recycling, developing, moving on and manipulating. So we're using a set that we originally started for one use in a show a long time ago, but we've recycled it here and we're using it in numerous different ways. So we're using it particularly here in one way, and again, that's another topic we could talk about later on. So I think I've done enough of my introduction now, other than to say, of course, thank you Arts Council for the money. It was fantastic. It was great. And the COVID Rescue Fund came at just the right time, and thank you for furlough. So we managed to survive through in order to get this moment. So I'll ask the dancers now to get ready, and we'll just jump into a section in the middle of a whole series of things that are going on. It's kind of strange actually working this out, because it's kind of like, well, you want to show everybody and share, but you don't want to give it all away. So who knows? We'll see. Thanks for that, guys. That was great. Thank you. So that's just a little taster of a section of the show where two of our characters are struggling to reconcile what it is to be at home with all of these negative voices around them. So that may sound familiar for some people, because obviously I set out with one load of content in my mind when I was making this show, but you cannot ignore the situation in the world around you as you're making work, and it heavily influenced how this show is developed in terms of how the themes relate to the internal voice inside and the external voice that you're constantly having to play a balance with. And one of the definitions of psychosis is that for some people, when they hear voices that tell them to do things, it's simply that they no longer recognize that voice as their own. And that's quite a change. And I found that something quite interesting to play with in the material. But I also wanted to refer a bit to the external voices that we have in the world around us in terms of news and fake news and media and fake media and all of that sort of thing. So that gives you a little glimpse of that kind of material. What we're going to do now is a duet from later in the first half of the show. And this is a duet between two characters, which is between a crow and a person. And the person, when it's digital, is in a little house. But for today, it's a box in terms of what we're doing. So this will give you another look at some of the areas in which the show is going to. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, guys, for that. That was very lovely. Thank you. So, we've had a little group work, we've had a duet. What we're going to be showing you next is a different element of the material. So, in the first half, we have these two sets of characters, our everyday people and our crows. In the second half, things change, and we just watch our characters. But they have changed by the experience of the first half. And we're just going to show you a little bit of the material that we do in the second half, which just explores a little bit of slightly different language for us in terms of the development that we want to go in. So, getting ready? Cool. Okay. So, it was very interesting to me. Nobody will be the first ever Motionhouse show with an interval, which is a big departure for me, because I've always really believed in creating a momentum right from the start that sort of sweeps you through a whole show. And I was really not very keen on the interval thing. But it's been quite exciting to play with, actually, and it's offered me a whole new series of opportunities, really. And it also allowed me to do something where you change the nature of the experience of the performers between the halves and the roles they're playing and what you're trying to say to the audience. So that's been a really fun thing for me to play with. It's interesting. Obviously, with this show, we're coming off the back of just having finished a long-term triptych in terms of we started with Scattered, a show about water. We developed into Broken, a show about our relationship with the earth, the physical earth itself, and a show about Charge, which was our relationship to energy. And there's sort of a green trilogy, if you like. And they all followed a particular theme in a particular format. So having completed that, it was time for us to go somewhere else. I'm not leaving the green agenda. I've spent 10 years on the last major triptych working on it. So I needed to do something else so that I can look at it afresh when I come back and create the work again. So this show has taken us really into exploring some basic facts about how humanity and how it's been really put in the spotlight over the last couple of years. And it's been an exciting place to play. How are you doing? Do you think you're ready to go? 30 seconds? Yeah. So, we're starting this with the last move of one section that then goes into the opening part of a very long section. But you'll be pleased to know that we're only showing you a short little bit, because we really actually want you to come and see the show, but we're quite happy to share this little bit with you. And it also raises some more questions about what we're doing and where we're going. And I think that's probably your 30 seconds. Yeah. Okay. All right then. So we'll do another little section for you, and then we can carry on. And I hope that you're going to send in some questions. Well, thank you very much for that, guys. I'm going to ask the dancers to come out and join me now. If you'd like to come and join us. Oh. Ooh. So, thanks to the COVID Recovery Fund and some great management by Louise, our CEO, and hard work by the office, we're managing to rebuild our company. So, as well as the Nobody cast that you've seen here, we have expanded. We have new dancers in the company who are joining us and will be part of our performing team. And we have new office people coming back to help us rebuild so that we can build back to the dynamic company we were before COVID struck us down. But now we're really expanding, getting back and creating what we can do. David,
thank you.
Welcome.
Thanks everyone, that was incredible. I'm lucky enough to have seen the show with all the effects and with the costumes, but even without it, even stripped down like that, it is still really moving in places. It's really, really powerful.
David, can I just interrupt you one moment?
Yep.
Because there's one thing that I wanted to do, and I was just talking my way through it there, and I forgot. So I'd like all the dancers to just briefly introduce themselves.
I'm Danny. Hi, I'm Ollie.
I'm Berta. I'm Shannon. I'm Beth.
Chris.
I'm Junior.
I'm Joel.
I'm Nana.
I'm Kai.
I'm Alex.
I'm Joel.
And we also have Aaron, but being Motionhouse, we're also doing something else at the same time as we're doing this, and Aaron is teaching for us at the moment, so he can't be here with us. But I'm glad that we've got the rest of you. Thank you very much to join us. Sorry, David, back to you.
Fine. Right, I'm going to kick off with the Q&A, and I've got some few questions of my own to ask you guys first, but it is an amazing opportunity to ask the cast and the director any question you want to ask. So do put your questions in the chat, and the team will feed them to me to ask in a bit, okay? So, starting with the obvious question, Kevin, what's it all about? What's the concept and the plot of Nobody?
The concept and the plot of Nobody is how we go through our lives, and one of the ways that we can find to balance our lives is how we balance our inner voice. Everybody has one. Everybody hears an inner voice in their head talking to them, and how we balance the relationship between that and the outer voices that we hear telling us what to think, what to do, where we should be, all of that stuff. And that balance of how we get a momentum and we get a relationship with this world is just really, really interesting. And I thought it's really come to the fore in this COVID time. So I thought it was very interesting to just look at who you are and how you find yourself in difficult times. So that's what it's about.
Well, where did the seed for the show start? When did you start thinking about Nobody, and where did it evolve from?
It had a bit of a torturous route, actually. It was really interesting. I started off, and I knew I had to do something completely different to the path I'd been on for the last few shows. And I originally was looking at our whole relationship with the tech world and how it influenced our lives and all of that sort of thing. And I started out and I made a load of material and I developed lots of stuff. And then I just thought, I'm a man who can't run his Facebook account efficiently. What am I saying to anybody about it? I don't, it makes no sense. And I just thought, stop, we're not doing this. Just junked it all. Despite all the dancers' best efforts to create fabulous things, I'm like, no, we have to start again. And I started again, and I really thought, I have to go back to a kernel of what it is, what are we feeling at this time? How do we relate on a person-to-person level? And that became much simpler and much purer. And that then started the path. And then there was also a whole series of technical challenges in that for the last 3 shows, with Scattered, we had a beautiful curved screen that we could dive down and dive across and roll, and all the film was on there. And then for Broken, we had a beautiful screen that was slatted that we could dive and move through, and we could relate to that digitally. And then for Charge, we had 11 screens at all slightly different angles at the back, which we could do and fabulous things with, and we developed all of that. But it was all essentially working with the screen at the back, and I thought, yeah, we need to move on, we need to do something else. So I had to get a new digital direction as well as a new content direction. And for a while, we've been building up our physical language, and I knew that there was a place that I wanted to go to where I started to move the whole language on to try and we'd been absorbing and developing pieces of different material and different ways of working, and I needed a show to really take the next step and really fashion it into something. And I hope when the show opens and we're all there, that you'll see that new language.
I've got to say, I mean, the video projection and the images in this are really amazing, and I think what the viewers at home probably can't see is the amount of kit flying in the air above us, the projectors on these screens. So how far did you have to adapt technology that you've been using before to imagine your vision for this show? Was it challenging to do that?
It was really challenging. There were a whole series of challenges, right from the fundamental premise of we need to make our shows lighter and more transportable, and we've always had really big sets. So how can we have a really big set that's lighter and more transportable, doesn't weigh as much, make us a greener company in terms of what we're trying to do and move around. And then there was this new work with the digital, and at the same time, my digital collaborators live in Ilorio, which is just above Bilbao in Spain, and they couldn't come for the entire process, first time ever. So with this studio, and with your help and everything else, we managed to get all of the technical environment so that, and thanks to Andy, our production manager, who's helping us through it all, we got our environment. We worked with a specialist called Barrett Hodgson, who really helped us with the digital mapping, and it was all remotely entered. So all the projectors, all the lights and everything, we'd come in, and there would be material that had come to us from Spain, coming out of projectors that were being operated by Barrett, who was running them from Nottingham, and it was all done remotely, digitally. So all of that was great. It offered a whole new set of opportunities, but also it offered a series of challenges because you didn't have the people in the room to mentally wrestle with, if you know what I mean.
And how was that? Because we've all lived in a world where we've all been separated and working from home and stuff for about the last year.
Yes.
How was it working with your collaborators over several hundred miles in some cases?
Well, hundreds of miles in the case of the Spanish. It was really, it was very, very challenging. It was very difficult to do when you're trying to search for an idea and just unearth what a thing is. There's often long conversations and moments of boredom, and when you've got everybody in a room, you cannot let them leave, so everybody has to endure it until you get a solution. Whereas if it's on Zoom, everybody, I've got to go now. So it was quite challenging in some respects. It was also extremely challenging for the dancers because we'd started on making a show. We'd made a lot of work. They were really working hard, and they were doing some really cool things. And then for them, everything stopped. We went into lockdown. There was no guidance at the time to let us do anything else. So the poor souls all had to go home, and thank God for furlough. And it was really sad because we had to cut down the company. It's the first time we've ever had to do that. It was a very, very difficult time. And they had a lot of time at home, and that's really a dagger in the heart of a dancer's life, really, because when you start as a dancer, you know that you've got a particular period of time where you can be at the top of your game with a certain area of material. You can dance all your life, but you have to change as the cycles of your life go on. And, their time was being stolen from them in a way. So they were at home and they were kind of suffering that. And I really, really felt for them. And once we got the government guidance that we could come back, we're kind of all coming back. We're all doing our COVID. We're all a bit nervous and whatever. But we're also in here and everybody else is locked down, and then we're starting to try and make a show again almost from scratch. And it was a real challenge for them because, a dancer, you have to dance every day. You have to train, you have to be fit, you have to be ready. And if you haven't been here for 6 or 8 or however many months, your body's changed. It's a tremendous effort to get yourself back. And at the same time, you have to get yourself back in the groove with the creative. And then, so there was a struggle to get back to where we were, let alone the fact that the whole premise of this is that we would go on to another level. So it was a real journey for the dancers, my collaborators in this one.
We've got loads of questions, guys, for you in a minute, so get you thinking outside in a sec. But do you think, you've already mentioned the relationship with COVID, and I think I've said to you before, this feels like a really personal show, maybe because you have got characters that flow throughout it. Did you feel that consciously when you were going through the process of redesigning during COVID? Was there a aspect
Yeah,
of
I
that?
felt it very much. I felt that also as an artist, when I make something, I always have to have a connection with the material. And, I went into myself and thought about what I'm doing and what my family are facing and the relationships that we have and what that experience is like. And I had a long time at home on my own, wrestling with this show and thinking about what it would be. And then when the dancers come back, then I have to re-establish that relationship with them, and then they bring all their experiences in. And then as soon as we start making material, we're sharing and we're guiding. And then, there's loads of material in this where, I have an idea and whatever, but the dancers are working and making, creating, and then I'm just shaping in various points about where I want it to go. And it's a real, the way that I work and the principle I believe in is the first thing that you have to do is make a team. And when you've made a team, and that's your technical and your dancers and all the other artists where you work, when you've made a team that's committed to working together, then there is a possibility to make something really good. So we had to come back and start again and remake our team. And then all together, we then had to go on this journey down the Yellow Brick Road to find this show.
Okay. Well, at that point, that's a good segue into asking the company some questions, guys. So I'm not going to point at people, but I'm sure some of you are going to volunteer and help me out here. So loads of questions here, specifically about the development of this show. The bit that we saw earlier on where Berta, you do your fall and catch. How do you rehearse those shows to make sure that you're not going to hit the floor? How do you make sure it's always going to be safe?
We usually go really step by step and start from first of all seeing what we're comfortable with, and then from there. Oh, sorry. So we go step by step, and we first of all ask who would be comfortable with this idea that we've had. And then once someone says they're comfortable, we for example, from this drop, we started by doing first floor, then we tried a bit more, and then maybe a couple of days just doing from the third floor, and then when we're finally comfortable, we go to the top one. And every time we do a run, we practice it before the run, so we know it's safe.
And how do you ensure in the heat of a live performance, when there's lights and audience reaction and everything else, how do you make sure it's still safe and it's still making sure?
So in terms of lights, we always check that it's not going to be in our sights or anything like that, but in that moment you're really just thinking about what you're doing and not about the external inputs. So you try and zone out about other noises and concentrate on what you're doing at that point.
Does Kevin ever come up with any ideas that you guys just think are just too mad, too dangerous?
I think we are the crazy ones. We're the ones that say, yeah.
Yeah, because often I'll be making things, and there might be a time when I'll say, try this, try that. But often the dancers, because to be creative is to understand how to play. And one of the things that we have to learn every time is how to play with the material. And so we really encourage that. And then because the company have this ethos of playing, they play and they find things and they train themselves and they develop, and then they go, we can do this. And I go, that's great, let's put it in. And often with a lot of these things, people think, I'm a terrible person for doing all this to my performers. But actually it's them who are coming up going, we can do this, put it in. And I'm going, okay, looks great. Basically, most of the time I'm going, yeah, looks great, I'm going to do that. Yeah.
So yes. Obviously one of Motionhouse's main features is the fact that you combine dance with circus and athletics and all that kind of stuff. I mean, you guys, the new dancers joining the company, you were there once, So when you join the company as a dancer, how do you pick up all these tricks and these stunts and these really... Do you have any experience of circus skills? Do you have any kind of background in that, or do you literally just have to start learning it?
A lot of us come from different backgrounds, so we all bring different things to the table. But then there is a period of time where we have to start really bringing all those specific skills together. So a few years ago now, we collaborated with a circus company, and that has really helped inform the techniques that we use when we're doing circus. But we also, again, we play with it, and we also look at finding our own ways through the movements. We want to keep the dance within what we do, and keep the performance within what we do. So we try to take these things on, but also just really incorporate them into our strengths as well. But yeah, for the new guys, there is a period of time where we just have to go back to basics, and it's always really good for us as well, just to go back and start working on all of the things that got us started before we started doing things a lot higher up and the riskier elements to it. So we just, there's a method to it, and a bit like Berta was saying, it's step by step, trying to keep it nice and safe on every level, and then be able to explode it in the performance.
It's been an interesting question in terms of the development of the language that we use, in that, you know, we've always been very interested in partnering, and I've always been very interested in spectacle and developing that in the dance. And the key for us in terms of what we're doing is we look at the circus material that we use as just another element of partnering in terms of how we're going, because for me, all of the tricks and the stuff have to blend into a language that is expressing the emotion that's coming from what we want to say and what the music's saying and what the images are framing for us. So we really have to make a language out of this, and that's what's been exciting to us, in that contemporary dance has been kind of a vampire for a long time. It's absorbed street dance, and it will take a bit of tap, and it'll take anything around and absorb it in. And as part of that, we're just absorbing a lot of the circus hand-to-hand type techniques and various other elements, and trying to blend it into our language so that we move across them, and so that it becomes a thing. This is us, and this is what we do. And that's kind of our search.
And when you get, I mean, you've got a lot of new dancers joining the company all at once. How do you manage that in terms of a cohesive company and your style and how you're taking on your company?
Well, luckily I don't have to manage it very much. I just get Junior to do that. Junior's our rehearsal director and managing all of that. But we know that we have a range of material, so when dancers come in, there's shows that we made a while ago that are still touring, whereby you can follow the same path as we did. So we kind of like to get them in on those shows, because you start to pick up the language there, and then as we go up the generations of the shows, the language becomes more complex and the risk is a little bit higher all the time. And so you have a path to follow. I mean, in the old days, if you were, you know, when we were touring and we were making our shows, and if, God forbid, something happened and somebody was temporarily injured, you know, there have been times when some fabulous dancers have come in and rehearsed for a week and then done a show with us. But those days are gone now. That can't happen anymore because of the level of where the language is going. It's just not possible, and it wouldn't be safe. So it's so we're, as an ensemble, we're opening and broadening. We've got a whole body of work. We want to make works with the entire ensemble, and then we have a whole range of smaller ones, so that we're a dynamic company, and everybody in the company wants to be better, and that's the key, and that's what excites me about working with this group of people, that they train and they learn new skills and they do other things. So every time I'm coming into an environment that's already pushing itself on, and I can surf that wave and then develop and hopefully take us all to another place.
Another question for the company from the online audience. Is there a trick or a stunt in particular in the show that looks easy but is actually really, really difficult?
just going to say there's a few. Like, it's always really hard to know when you're watching the show which ones are hard and which ones are easy. There's ones that look very hard and are easier, and then a lot that, like, the majority are harder than they look. But I think, yeah, like, in the second half, there's loads, because we do, like, loads of tricks and we go up and down. And there's loads of times where, like, we're not really looking at what we're going to catch, or, like, because the piece is, like, moving constantly. So it might look easy, because from the audience you can see what's going on, but sometimes you're, like, you have to be looking one way, and then when you turn, there's something coming, and it's always hard to, like, know exactly what is coming. We train it, and we end up, like, being safe, but it's still harder than it looks, I think.
I mean, you know, we just showed a little bit today. It's just a little rehearsal, and we've just shown some little pieces, but the show really does build to, I mean, the type of things that we're doing in this show are more than we've done before. We've really pushed on.
What's the main thing that makes it distinctive from the shows that have gone before in your mind? Why is it a new departure and a new direction for you?
Well, the first thing is that, you know, basically when you've got a whole group of really talented performers who are pushing and pushing, if you're not careful, they can be held back by the choreographer. So the choreographer has to push on all the time. And it's what I want to do, and it's the thing that keeps my work alive. So I have to push myself into creating a context in which what they can do can be shown to its best abilities. So that's a challenge to drive it on, but also it's the spur, because I think, well, if they're I can go as fast as I like because they're going to keep up with me, and that's a really exciting place for a creative to be in terms of what you want to do and achieve. And I feel that there's been probably 15 years of Motionhouse company that have been building to a place, and all the previous performers have all contributed in the way in that we've been bringing more and more aerial work in, we've been bringing more and more physical, we've been learning the hand-to-hand, and we're bringing that in. And each show has built, and each generation has built, so we've built on the shoulders of our previous giants, if you like, and now we're here. And I genuinely feel, in my own personal opinion, that we're now achieving to the place where it's a kind of identity that I've been working towards for a long time, and it's very exciting for me. It's probably hell for them, but it's great for me.
And can I just add to that? So, because I've been here since pretty much the dawn of time now, and I just want to echo what Kevin's saying. What the shows have done for me is I was quite lucky that I aged out of performing because it got to the point where what was happening, I was starting to struggle with where the material was going. And you know, when I joined the company, I remember learning some aerial, and it was all done this high off the floor, and it was really hard, it was really technical, and the dancers, Vanessa, Helen, Nikki, you know, Gary, all the guys that I was working with were amazing, and I was chasing their tail. But then I was like, right, I need to try and add on top of that. Then the next lot come in, and they go, oh, we need to add on top of that, and we need to add on top of that. And what's really nice is, who's there laid the bedrock, and they're able to go, oh, I'll teach you what I know. But then you already know, the minute you pass on what you know, they're like, thanks, and then put another layer on top, and put another layer on top. And it's really nice talking to one of the other ex-dancers who watched just the trailer for this show and was absolutely blown away by what these guys are doing. And it's really heartening and really nice to be a part of it still without having to do it, because I don't want to do it. But it's great that the past dancers can look and go, oh yeah, I remember when we were doing this, and now you guys are doing this, and hopefully that ball will just keep rolling, and you know, who knows where the end is, because yeah, well, we know that they're fantastic. I don't say it too much in front of them, because but yeah, it just keeps building. So it's a really great thing to be a part of.
And you know, everybody who comes in, we say, welcome. This is where we are. Join us at this level, and then you and everybody else have got to take us on beyond where we are now.
So
that's the game.
Enforced break of COVID and furlough, how did that affect the evolution and also your fitness? How did you, without training every single day and running shows every day and developing shows, how did you keep, well, one, mentally fit and also physically fit?
I think a lot of us were quite lucky because some of us like live with each other, so we was able to like train together, and we also did like an online class all together, like company class each day, and then as we were allowed to, we were able to, you know, go in and use the studio in our who we were living with and things. So we were able to, in one way it was nice to have the time to be able to develop in a skill that maybe we wouldn't, because we'd be rehearsing and things you wouldn't exactly have the time to do. But then, like fitness-wise, it was quite hard because you only kind of get the fitness from doing what we do every single day. Like going for a run is not going to be the same as doing 9 to 5 of these shows every single day. So it was...
How hard was it coming back for the first few rehearsals and the first few kind of sessions? Was it a slow start, or did you all just...
Well, the aim was to start slow and then try and build it up. I think it was good towards the beginning because we had a few weeks to kind of train up, and also because the restrictions allowed us, we was able to go into the studio and do class together and do a bit of training before our start date happened. So we had a little bit of preparation, and then we came in and we needed to go straight into creative for this show to get the show going. So then when that happened, it was like straight in. But it was nice because we'd had such a long time off that we was all kind of like ready to kind of fire up the show. So I don't know whether it kind of helped give the show like a fire. I don't know.
What was the pressure like, Kevin, in terms of, presumably during COVID, the deadline for when this show has to be finished must have been flexing all over the place, right? And so when were you thinking we have to get this show finished? When were you actually where did you get to that point, or have you got to that point?
No, it was very, very difficult during COVID time to try and, because you've got nobody to bounce off, so you work your own ideas out and you do it, and then you bore yourself, and then you do something else and something else and something else. But there's no real way of experimenting, and you know, you don't have the physical thing to play with and develop, so it's quite a challenge. But and I knew that when we came back, I absolutely had to be ready. So I had a couple of months of really very challenging time, because there was a long period where I was kind of wandering in the wilderness going, I've junked all this, where am I going, where's it going to be, and all of that sort of thing. So it was pretty tough, but it was nothing compared to what everybody was going through in terms of the experience. So these two sort of reflected themselves, and then you go, okay, so I can use this now to make this. And so it gave me the drive to do it. And also, because we, at Motionhouse, we have a full outdoor program where we're touring our work outdoors, all the outdoor shows, and we have a spectacle program where we're doing very large-scale events, and then we're touring our shows. And what happened was everything stopped, so that when we came back, there was this kind of, everything has gone, so now we have to pick this up, we have to make this show, but we're going to have to pick up everything else as well. And I think we all love what we do and we're all passionate about it, but sometimes when you're in the middle of it and you're doing this show and then you're going over here and then you're doing that and you're going, and it's busy and it's really hard work and you're kind of lost in the middle of it, and you enjoy all you do, but when everything is taken away from you, and the thing that kept me going, and we'll have to ask the dancers, but I would expect, is it was taken away from me. And there were times when I thought, you know, this goes on and on, I may never get to make this show. And that was breaking my heart, you know, because I thought it's going to be good as far as I'm concerned. And so there's this passion to make it building, and yet there's this gulf where you can't do it. So that gives you a tremendous energy to come back. And when we came in, just everybody was just bursting to bring that part of themselves and that part of life. And the essence of being an artist, they're all artists, and they needed to let that out. They'd been robbed, and so they were like the jailed free at last. You know, there was a joy in the studio from coming back that was wonderful to share.
Well, on that
Thank
note,
you.
as we're nearing the end of the session, and I know there's some football fans both in the company and online watching, we'll wrap it up. But if I'll ask one final question of the company, if I can, bearing in mind what Kevin has just said, what are you looking forward to most about touring a new show again?
I just can't wait to perform to an audience. I think we've all missed it so much. Us performing, audiences watching like live performances, and I know I've missed it so much. But I think, yeah, like getting out there and giving the energy that we've all got to the audience is just, I think it's just going to be special, and yeah, I can't wait to show people what we've made, what we've been working on, how far we've come, and just give the energy, because we all want to give it and we're all ready. We're all, yeah.
And as I say, I've seen the show, and it's amazing that something like COVID has, you know, input into your artistic process, and you've come out with an absolutely smashing show. It's absolutely brilliant. So
Well, thank you very much, David, and thank you, company, all of you, new ones, old ones, young ones, all of you, all of this tremendous energy. Thank you very much.
Great, so all that's left for me to do is all the thanks. So firstly, I just want to thank again all the performers for their energy and for everything that they have been going through. I'd also like to thank Noisegate for helping us put on this live stream, because without them we would have absolutely no clue what we're doing. I'd like to thank the behind the scenes people, so all the guys in the office who slave away and very rarely get recognition for what they do. Without them, we who are on stage won't be able to do what we do. And thank you for our commissioners, because, you know, without people putting their hands in their pockets, how are we going to do it? Arts Council and Cultural Recovery Fund have been an absolute saviour and lifeline. So just thank you all, thank you for the team, and thank you guys at home for tuning in today. This live stream will stay up and stay live, so if you enjoyed it, please share the link with friends. And just a reminder, any information that you need about tour dates, where we will be, if we'll be coming to a town near you, will be on our website, so please check it out. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you.